So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to buy a $10 million business using just debt. Okay, just debt financing, no money out of your pocket, and you acquired the business using bank's money and no collateral from your side. Personally, there can be collateral from the business, but not necessarily from your personal pocket. Okay, so how to acquire a $10 million business using bank's money? That's what I'm going to be talking to you about in this video. If you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button. I post one video every day on finance and business mergers and acquisitions, how to buy businesses using debt. And I'm an entrepreneur. I'm the founder of a healthcare investment company in UAE. And in the last 2 years, I have negotiated over a $3.5 million deal, a $10 million deal, $25 million deal, $120 million deal, and $140 million deal. I have also brought together a CEO of a $3.5 billion public company in the UAE, and lawyers that have advised on a $11 to $13 billion bank merger, and CFOs of a $400 million companies. They are all my business partners. Okay, and I managed to bring these people together. I'm just 29 years old. I did not start with a lot of money, and I managed to do this within 2 to 3 years. Okay, so this is the position I'm in. I have this business in UAE, and I'm still involved in deals and running my company. Okay, so let's talk about how do you acquire this $10 million business using debt. Okay, so there are several components that need to come together for this to happen, and one of the component is the profit margin of the business. So when you're acquiring a company, you got to make sure that the margin is big enough. Why? Because the bank is going to need it. I have negotiated and done presentations over a couple of hundred presentations with banks, and I have met and talked to over 80 bankers at different levels. So small bankers that finance $1 million deals to guys that have financed $300 million transactions. And I've also met lawyers who have raised that kind of money from banks. So I have a pretty good understanding about what they finance, what they don't finance, based on their own words and their own policies. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this may not work in every single country the way I am explaining it. So it really depends on the policies of the banks in your region. But this works in most places, and it works very well. In fact, if you check your country, you will see that there are companies buying other companies using banks' money. So it's happening in almost every single country, but the structure will depend on where you are based. And so I just wanted to give you that disclaimer. Also, this video is not for you to watch and execute. This video is for you to just understand and have an overview and a flavor of what it's like to do a multi-million dollar deal and finance a multi-million dollar deal. And so you need to do several steps before actually financing. You need to build a team. You need your lawyers, accountants. You need experience and expertise on your board. You want financial professionals and legal professionals advising you before you acquire a business. Okay, and to analyze the business, to assess the risk, to look at the loan documents, and be properly advised from your financial professionals and legal professionals in your country. So that is my disclaimer. This is just for your understanding, and I just want to provide you that disclaimer. Okay, so number one thing that's important is the margin of the business, and so it has to be high. It has to be over 20%. So the banks in my region where I am, they like deals which have 20% and above profit margins. Okay, if you have that, then the bank knows that the company has enough cash flow to cover the debt service. And the second component is that the company that you're buying has to be stable. So in the last 5 years, the company should have very stable revenues and going up. Okay, so those are two important metrics. The third most important metric is also that the business cannot be dependent on one person. So you have 12 people running the business or 50 people running the business. The business cannot depend on one or two people. So 80% of the revenue cannot come from one or two people. If that is the case, then that's a very risky business because those two people control everything. And if those two people leave, the business is going to collapse and the bank is not going to get their money. So key man risk, it's in the business world, it's known as a key man risk. So you got to make sure there is no key man risk in the business. Okay. And then you have the purchase price, which is extremely important because the purchase price is going to determine what the cash flow to debt service coverage ratio will be. For example, if you are, I'll get to that in a bit, but the cash flow of the business, the profit of the business needs to pay the debt service by at least twice. So it has to cover twice. So if your debt payment is $1 million, your cash flow, yearly debt payment is $1 million, your cash flow has to be $2 million. So even after you pay off your payment for the debt, you still have some cash. It's very similar to getting a credit card. It's just that there are more zeros at the end and there are operational complexity in a $10 million business, and your life, I'm sure, will have also complexity. So the dynamics of the deal is different, but in terms of finance, it's just more zeros and the structure is very similar to your credit card payments. Now, the price have to be right. So you want to buy a good business at a discounted price. And the reason somebody is going to sell you that business is because they have some personal problems. Otherwise, why is anybody who has a $10 million business that's producing a 20% margin is going to sell you at at a lower price? They have to be dealing with some issues. They can be personal issues or they can be business related issues related to that company. For example, they could have lawsuits and they could have a reputational issue or something else. Okay. You want to avoid business related complexities. You should look for business owners that want to sell you their business who have personal challenges. You don't want them to sell you the business that has complications. Okay. You're fine with them having personal complications in their personal life, and that can be a motivator to sell their business, but you don't want them to sell you the business because the business is not going to perform well in future because of those complexities. There are companies who acquire other groups which have problems, but you don't want to do that at the beginning. What you want to do is you want to find a business that's running really well, but the owner has personal issue. And that personal issue can be divorce, health problem, relocation, or some other reason other than the business itself or other than a financial reason. Okay, you want that reason to be personal. So if you have a personal reason, then they will sell you at a lower price. Recently I was relocating and I had so much of furniture in my apartment that I wanted to sell, and I listed the furniture on the market so that people will buy it at a very discounted price. I even listed it at 50% off, and because I had such a short time frame, I couldn't sell that furniture even at 50% value. So what I did was I just gave it away, and I didn't need the money from anybody, but I just wanted to get rid of the furniture, and I didn't care if I received the money or even if I receive a little bit. So the person, the buyer who finds me at the right time, who is also looking for furniture, will get the best deal, because my furniture is in great condition, but I am moving out of the house. Maybe I want to buy a new furniture, whatever the reason is. But the reason is not really financial, it's personal. So I'm not selling the furniture because I need the money. I'm selling the furniture because for whatever reason, I want to get rid of the furniture. Okay. So you want a business owner that is motivated. It's a motivated seller. And the money is made when you buy a business. When you buy a business, it's not made when you buy and when you sell. It's made when you're buying. It's at the entry point that's the most crucial aspect of the deal. So how much you can bring the price down, that would determine how much you would make at the end when you sell it. Because you're buying a business to sell it. That's how you cash out. That's how you cash out 10, 15 times the yearly profit in your personal pocket and in the pocket of your team. But you make the money when you enter, and you successfully turn it around, and then you sell it successfully. So it's important the price at which you buy. I had a group in UAE who made 47 acquisitions, and they raised over $1 billion, and they paid too much just to acquire the business. They just wanted the business, and as a result they paid crazy prices, and they could not sell it, and they had to sell it on loss. So what price you buy it at is extremely important, because you will be buying this business using debt, which is other people's money. It's the bank's money, and you got to be careful as to structure a good deal. It's better to say no to a lot of deals. Okay, so that's number one, is the price. Then you've got the margin, then you've got the risk, operational risk, legal risk, financial risk. You need to assess all of this. Okay, so you have got a business that has a revenue of $10 million and a profit of $3 million. Now that's a very good business. Now you might say, how is it possible that a $10 million business has a margin of 30%? Well, this is the reason why you get into an industry that has those numbers. You can't do this in an industry which is having 8%, 12% margin. So it doesn't matter if it's a $10 million business if the profit is just $800,000 or $1 million. You don't want that. You want a $10 million business that has a $3 million of profit. That's a good business. And the owner is 70 years old. So he has got health problems and a bunch of other things that he's dealing with, and he's tired of running the business and he wants to sell. So that's a good deal, because no rational person is going to sell you that business for a discounted price. Only a person suffering from a personal illness or some personal issue and has to get rid of the business within a short period of time, that's an opportunity. And you got to make thousands of calls to find an opportunity like that. So the reason I'm not getting into financing immediately is because financing is just the closing part. It's all of these things that will determine how good the deal is and how well you can finance it from a bank. Because here is what the bank is, here is the principle on which the bank operates. The principle is that we will take from you an asset as collateral, and it has a value of $10 million, and instead we will give you only $7 million in cash. So they want an asset which has more value than the money that they are giving you. That's the principle on which the bank operate. They want as much collateral as possible and give out as little money as possible, so that when you want to get that asset back, you have to pay interest, or if you lose the asset, they'll still make the money. So irrespective, they win. So they want a complete slam dunk from their point of view. They don't want risk, they don't like risk, and you got to remove the risk from the deal. You got to really make sure that the deal is secure. So how you make sure is by negotiating the purchase price down from a motivated seller of a business which is high margin, and the risk is spread over many people. Okay, the business cannot depend on one customer, one employee, one doctor, whatever, one CEO, one salesman. It cannot be, the risk cannot be concentrated to one person, because that person can pass away, leave the company, go to the competitor, anything can happen. So you got to make sure, this is a background that I want to give you before I get to financing. You want to make sure that all of these things are in place when you are buying a business, especially a $10 million business. Okay, so you have a business producing $10 million in revenue with $3 million in profit. Okay, and you are paying the price roughly around 3.5 to 3.2, okay, times. So the price is basically 3 times the profit. So the profit was 3 million, you multiply that by 3 to 3.5, and what you will have is $10 million as the purchase price. Now that's a very discounted purchase price, because it's a very rare deal. It's a little bit of a rare scenario that a $10 million business who has a 30% profit margin is agreed to sell you at a 3.5 times. I mean, that's a slam dunk, And now what you want to do, once you've agreed on the $10 million price, you want to say, hey, listen, I will not be able to give you all the money up front. And then the seller says, what the hell do you mean? I want my 10 million. And he says, listen, I will not be able to do it. The bank is not going to give me 10 million. He says, okay, how much is the bank going to give you? He said, the bank may give me 5 million, 50% of the price. And they said, oh no, that's too less. He says, okay, fine. I will give you not 10 million, but 12 million. Okay, so you increase the purchase price by 2 million. But I can only give you 5 million right now and 6 million over time. Okay, is that okay? And the seller says, let me think about it. And then he comes back and he says, you know what, even if I get all the 10 million, it's most likely going to be a tax event. So, and I'm not going to use all the money. So I'll take it over time. And you're like, okay. So now what you just did, first you negotiated down the price. Then you said that I want to pay only 50%. The seller said no. So you added a bait at the end and you added $2 million. The greed level, the greed index of the deal goes up because of the number 12 million. But your cash position is just 5 million. What you need to pay him is actually 5 million. So now the seller asks, when are you going to pay me the 6 million? And you tell the seller, I can pay you the 6 million after 4 years. Okay. At the beginning of the fourth year, I'll pay you 3. And at the end of the 4th year, I'll pay you 3. The seller says, okay. Now this is a very good deal. I will tell you why. The 5 million will come from the bank. Okay, so now you structure the deal, you document it on a piece of paper, now you go to the bank. And then the bank tells you, okay, Mister, what deal do you have? And you say, listen, I have a $12 million deal for you. And they're like, okay, that's nice, chunky, but we cannot give you all the 12 million. And you say, I know that, that's fine. How much can you give me? And they say, we can probably give you 6 or 7 million. And you got to come up with the 4 or 5. And you say, no problem. I can take 5 or 6. And then the banker says, where will the rest of the money come from? And you say, do you mind if the seller delays that payment? So that as far as you are concerned, you are only putting 50 to 60% of the deal. You're giving 5 or 6 million. And the banker says, okay, that's fine. So then you take this 5 million or 6 million, and then you go to the seller and you pay him the 5 million and you acquire the company. Now, how is this 5 million going to be repaid? You're going to take this loan of 5 or 6 million and you're going to structure it over 5 years. When you structure it over 5 or 6 years, the yearly payment is $1 million. But the cash flow is $3 million. So you have got a cash flow of $3 million covering the debt service of $1 million. And no money out of your pocket. The bank loves you because you brought a deal which has such a cash flow rich, and you told the owner, listen, you're not allowed to leave the company for 2 years. You're going to run the company for 2 years. You will get a salary and everything. And of course, you need the remaining 4 million or 5 million, right? So you got to make sure the company keeps performing. Because if it doesn't perform, we will reduce this 4 or 5 million. So you put the seller on the risk, because he's the one who knows the business. He cannot run away from the business. He needs to make sure the revenues keep going. So you created a structure which protects the risk in the deal. Okay, so you protected the risk, you negotiated the price down, it's a high margin business, and you, instead of giving all the money up front, you structured it in installments. And you delayed the second payment as much as possible so that the bank debt can be paid in this time. So in the 4 years, in fact, in 2 years, you can pay off the loan. In 2 years. Okay. And to pay the seller, you can go and get it refinanced and pay him the extra. And then, you have another 2 years and you can pay that also. So that's in essence a structure that this is what a good deal looks like, and most deals are not going to be this good. So it's a numbers game. You got to call a lot of sellers that want to sell their business in a profitable industry that has 20% margin, which has a motivated seller. You negotiate the price down, you buy it at the right price, and you pay only a part of the purchase price up front. This part can come from the bank. And the cash flow has to be big enough than the debt service. If you have those elements, that's a sign of a very successful transaction. And now you got to make sure that the numbers are legit, that it's validated from an external accounting firm. So you got to make sure that an external accounting firm analyzes the business financially, a law firm analyzes the business legally, that the business is legitimate, the cash flow is there. What the numbers you see on the paper is actually there in the bank and being collected. So you got to make sure that a lot of things are right about the business, and that's why you have your board of directors, your accounting firm, your law firm, who will all analyze this before you buy the company, okay, and before you raise financing. And the bank is going to ask you for a report, an audited, a due diligence report. That yes, this business is sound, the numbers that you see in the audited financials are correct, the external accounting firm is going to have their opinion on it, the law firms is going to have their opinion on it, they're going to have the stamp, KPMG stamp or Ernst & Young stamp. These are big accounting firms. And the banks love these firms because they're credible. And the banks love the law firms because they're credible, top law firms. So once you have those prepared documents, you go to the bank and you say, this is the deal structure. And the banker's tongue hangs out, his eyes goes up. This is a slam dunk. We're going to make straight up interest. I'm going to make a bonus on this deal. We're going to have the money back. The guy, he's is presenting the things properly. It's all transparent. He has done his work. He has experienced guys advising him, and they will give you an offer, a term sheet, and they will finance it. So that's how a deal looks like. And again, you may not get a yes from a bank on your first call, but you have to talk to hundreds and hundreds of banks, and you will have one of them that says yes. Okay. And that's assuming you do all of these things correctly, assuming that they can do acquisition financing, which is what this type of financing is called. You got to understand the policies. It's different in different regions, but in almost every region you will have some structure possible. Okay, and this model has been done in many countries. Okay, so banks are in different countries function almost in line with each other. Some places it's a little bit different, but you will find that if the numbers make sense, ultimately banking is about making interest, the fees, and the principal back and reducing the risk. Okay, that's what, and facilitate the growth in the business. That's what the banks are really there for anywhere in the world. So you got to make sure all of those things. You got to make sure you're advised properly, and that's how you do it. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in doing that, what I just explained, this is called mergers and acquisitions, which is buying companies. It's a strategy to build wealth through acquiring businesses. Instead of creating a business, you acquire businesses. And this is something I am doing in UAE. So if you want to learn from me, I have a mentorship program for 3 to 6 months where I train you one-on-one. You can take the one-on-one or you can take the group classes. I have 2 separate packages. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me, send me an email, message me on my social media accounts. I'm going to leave the link there, and I'll teach you how to do this. I will teach you how to get your professionals, your advisors, from finance background, top guys, legal background, top guys, operations, top guys, and accounting backgrounds, top guys. I will help you secure your accounting firm and law firms. I will help you find these businesses, locate them in your region. I will help you pick an industry that has these margins and this metrics. And I will also help you get in touch with banks, decision makers in the banks, and how to interview them properly, how to present your deal, and how to structure the deal, how to analyze the deal with your advisors, all starting with very little money. All you got to do is pay your expenses, pay for the mentorship, and have a little bit extra, and you can do this, because you're not really using your own money to buy the businesses, and you're not paying these professionals from your pocket. These professionals will be getting paid once you have done the deal. So until you do the deal, they will have shares in the company, but you don't have to pay them from your pocket. So this model is executed with very little money of your own. Now you got to pay your living expenses wherever you live, and transportation and all of those things, and the company formation. But apart from that, there is not a lot of expenses that happen in this business model if you do it right. Okay, so if you're interested, reach out to me and we can talk further how we can work together. I'll talk to you soon.